Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not imagine that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish them, but to complete them. I tell you solemnly, till heaven and earth disappear, not one dot, one little stroke shall disappear from the law until its purpose is achieved. Therefore, the man who infringes even one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be considered the least in the kingdom of heaven. But the man who keeps them and teaches them will be considered great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, if your virtue goes no deeper than that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never get into the kingdom of heaven. You have learned how it was said to our ancestors, 'You must not kill, and if anyone does kill, he must answer for it before the court.' But I say this to you, anyone who is angry with his brother will answer for it before the court. If a man calls his brother fool, he will answer for it before the Sanhedrin. And if a man calls him renegade, he will answer for it in hellfire. So then, if you are bringing your offering to the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there before the altar and go and be reconciled with your brother first, and then come back and present your offering. Come to terms with your opponent in good time while you are still on the way to the court with him. Or he may hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the officer, and you will be thrown into prison. I tell you solemnly, you will not get out till you have paid the last penny. You have learned how it was said, 'You must not commit adultery.' But I say this to you, if a man looks at a woman lustfully, he has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye should cause you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it will do you less harm to lose one part of you than to have your whole body thrown into hell. And if your right hand should cause you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it will do you less harm to lose one part of you than to have your whole body go to hell. It has also been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a writ of dismissal. But I say this to you, everyone who divorces his wife, except for the case of fornication, makes her an adulteress. And anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, you have learned how it was said to our ancestors, 'You must not break your oath, but must fulfill your oaths to the Lord.' But I say this to you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, since that is God's throne, or by the earth, since that is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, since that is the city of the great king. Do not swear by your own head either, since you cannot turn a single hair white or black. All you need say is yes if you mean yes, no if you mean no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one." The Gospel of the Lord. This weekend's long gospel reading from the Gospel according to Matthew takes me back to a time many years ago, shortly before the beginning of my own studies for the priesthood. At the time, I was a government employee at the Ministry of Agriculture. Everyone in the office knew that I was about to enter the seminary, and so as the quote-unquote priest in the office, I was often peppered with questions on morality, the majority of which were questions concerning sex. And they all went like this: how far can I go before committing a sin with my boyfriend or my girlfriend? If he or she and I did such and such, is this a sin? After many months of this kind of questioning, I was struck by a powerful realization. From the point of view of the Christian community, the central concern of morality is not with specific acts, doing this or avoiding that at all. The central concern of Christian morality is becoming a particular kind of person. The central concern of morality, the central question of morality is this: how do I live in the world as someone who loves Jesus Christ? And yet, in spite of my own realization, I could easily understand the anxiety felt by my own colleagues at work around the whole area of moral behavior. Just recently, our country's own Catholic News asked me to give some guidance to young Catholics who are thinking of engaging in our country's upcoming carnival celebrations, that wonderful pre-Lenten festival, often condemned by many Christians as lascivious and of no good, especially those on the evangelical wing. What can a Christian do? When do they begin to sin? And as a priest, it struck me that the real question should be for these young Christians: what kind of person should I be? Upon further reflection, I am struck by the fact that the church is not called to be a prison guard. Morality is not meant to be obsessed with specific acts. The law of the Lord invites us to do what we do because we love the Lord. Acting, doing good deeds out of fear or by force will avail us nothing. And so I have come over time to appreciate the value of one of the sayings that Jesus makes in this long discourse, the saying that is really the centerpiece of this teaching. If your virtue goes no deeper than that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not get into the kingdom of heaven. If your virtue goes no deeper than that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not get into the kingdom of heaven. So that in this long discourse, Jesus invites all of us to go beyond the surfaces of behavior and to look at our inner dispositions. What Jesus literally invites us to do or towards in this discourse, in this teaching, is what we call conversion. What Jesus is spelling out in this moral teaching, in this gospel, is really an ethic of the heart. The heart, that center of ourselves where all the great decisions of our lives are made. The place where you and I decide the kind of person that we are called, that we are going to be. I thank Almighty God because I've had the privilege and I've had the experience to witness people who live at the surfaces of behavior, people whose behavior is a behavior, an ethic that is concerned with how others view them, and I've been privileged to witness the example of people whose virtue goes beyond that of the scribes and Pharisees. Many years ago in a parish which I served with another priest, We were fortunate enough to receive a lunch every Sunday from this apparently very kind man. And however, after a number of years, after 2 or 3 years, I came to learn that this man who brought us lunch was also a wife beater. And I wondered to myself, how did he manage to live with two faces? One for father, for whom he brought lunch on a Sunday, and another for his wife. A second example, and this is a positive example that I witnessed while working outside of my own native country. I was speaking one Christmas with a friend, and and I was complaining to him that I was tired of sending out Christmas cards since the majority of these people never really got back to me. And he said to me something which I found very striking and extremely Christian. And he said to me, you know what? I send out my Christmas cards every year. And I send them out because I want to, because I choose to. That is the way I choose to live my life. I choose to be generous and loving with people. My dear friends, isn't that exactly the spirit of Jesus in the gospel? Elsewhere in Matthew's gospel, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 47, Jesus says, you know, if you love those who love you, what thanks have you to expect? Even the scribes and Pharisees do as much, do they not? And if you save your greetings for your brothers, what extraordinary thanks do you have to expect? There it is, then, someone whose virtue goes beyond the surface, whose virtue is deeper than that of the scribes and Pharisees. And so on the sixth Sunday of Ordinary Time, I thank Almighty God for all those wonderful moral examples that I've been privileged to witness over time. People whose behavior went beyond the surface, whose virtue went deeper than that of the scribes and Pharisees. People who showed me that morality was not so much about specific acts, but about being a particular kind of person. And for this we give praise and thanks to Almighty God. May God bless you all.